What is assimilation? When is assimilation used? Why do people use assimilation? Well, I'm going to answer all of these questions in today's video. If you'd like to practice assimilation and get feedback on your pronunciation, then why not consider private lessons? But Emma, where can I find a teacher for private lessons? Well, my friends, then I highly recommend you check out Preply. Preply is a platform that allows you to find one-to-one lessons with private teachers for many different languages, not just English. You can use the filter options to find the perfect teacher for you. And with thousands of different teachers on the platform, you're bound to find your perfect teacher. I know how hard it is trying to find a private teacher. I'm going through the same thing right now. I'm trying to find a Spanish teacher and it's really, really hard. However, with Preply, it makes it so much easier to find a teacher who suits your budget, your needs, and even your schedule. I also love that you can keep track of your learning progress and contact your teacher at any time if you need any help. It truly is a complete and all-in-one platform, perfect for anyone who's learning a language. So if you're interested in improving your confidence skills with English, then why not check out Preply? The link is down below in the description, and you can use the code Emma to get 50% off your first lesson. I hope you enjoy your first lesson on Preply. Now let's get started with some assimilation. I'm going to have to turn on my fan because it's actually boiling in here. Oof. Okay, that's like loads better. Okay, so let's start firstly with what is assimilation? In very, very simple terms, assimilation is when one sound changes so that it's easier to connect or it's easier to pronounce the sound that's after it. Quite often what happens with assimilation is it's the first sound that changes. I'll give you an example. Let's take the sentence, is that clear? Notice that I'm not saying, is that clear? Is that clear? I'm not really pronouncing that T. Listen to how I pronounce it quickly. Is that clear? Is that clear? So notice I'm changing that t into more of a k sound. I'm pronouncing it back here. This is assimilation. So we're changing that t sound to make it easier to transition to the k. The next question, when is assimilation used? Assimilation is used mostly in rapid speech. So if we take our example, is that clear? I can say it quite clearly. Ironically, I can pronounce the letters clearly when I say it slowly. However, if I try to say it quickly, is that clear? Is that clear? Or even quicker. Is that clear what I said? It's really quite tricky to do. So to make it easier to transition and easy to pronounce, we can change some of the sounds. Is that clear? And the last question, why do we use assimilation? Well, as I've already said, in theory, it should make it easier to transition between sounds. Have you ever found that when you're speaking English, you realize that you're getting a bit tongue-tied and you're thinking, how is it that these words are so hard to pronounce? I listen to native speakers and they're just pronouncing these words with no problems, like with zero effort. Well, it's because you're probably trying to pronounce all of the sounds. You're trying to enunciate every single sound so that when you're speaking at a quicker speed, it's actually quite difficult to do that. There are little tricks that native speakers use, such as removing sounds in consonant clusters, removing sounds at the end of words to make it easier, and changing the sounds, which is assimilation. That's what we're looking at today. So if you find that you're getting quite tongue-tied when you're trying to speak in English quickly, this lesson is great for you. It's going to help you so much. Now let's have a look at how and why these sounds change. We're just going to look at t, d, n, or t, d, and n for the letters today. So think about that example we looked at earlier. Is that clear? We know that in rapid speech, this is going to change to, is that clear? Is that clear? We change that T at the end to a K sound because the next word starts with a K. Now, essentially what we're doing is we're just changing the position in this case. Is that clear? We're just pronouncing it here. We're changing the position of the tongue so that we anticipate the following sound, that K in clear. Take a look at this one. I bought a new handbag. Handbag. Notice I'm not saying handbag. I bought a new handbag. So we're cutting that D. We'll talk about why we're doing that later. But we're cutting that D. We change that position from N to M. And then we get something more like an M. Handbag. Handbag. Here's another one. What's your song called? What's your... Now, we've got some assimilation there. We're not going to focus on that today, but just know that that can change as well. What's your instead of what's your. It's quite hard to say. What's your song called? Now, notice I'm not saying what's your son called. That's hard to say. Song called. It's that same that you get in words like sing, thing, and so on. So now we're changing that na in sun to because the next word starts with a k. So we change the position of so it's like the following sound. So it's like that k, and then it becomes an sound. So we're not changing the type of voicing here. Notice that when we have a t at the end, we're not changing it to a d. We're not changing the voicing in any way. We're only changing the position. So if you take a nasal sound, like in sun, this is a nasal. It's coming through the nose. We're still keeping the nasality, but we're just changing the position. So don't think, oh my goodness, there are endless possibilities with this one. It's really not that complicated, don't worry. All we're doing is just changing the position of the tongue or the lips. That's it. The voicing and nasality does not change. Now a little sip of my coffee. You know what? This is a Christmas mug. Can you see that? Might be a bit too bright. I've had this Christmas mug for a while. Quite a few years, actually. And I use it even though it's not Christmas. Let's have a practice together. I'm going to put a sentence on the screen. I'd like you to repeat after me and have a think about which sounds change. I know that person. I know that person. So notice that person, we're changing that final T in that, to more of a P sound. That person. We're linking them together. You should come. You should come. So notice, we're changing that D at the end of should. Instead of saying you should come, you should come. We're changing that position of da, which is at the front of the mouth, da, to that ka. Change a da to the position of a ka. What do we get? Ga. So we're keeping that voicing. You should come. So it sounds kind of like a ga. We're not releasing it as a ga. We're not saying you should come, but you should come. Hold it, then release it on the ka sound, on that second sound. 10% of people agree. 10% of people agree. So again, notice, not 10%. That's quite hard to say. 10%. Change that na to the position of a p. If we change na to the position of a p, what sound do we get? 10%. And remember, hold it and then release it on the second sound. 10%. 10%. I love going to art galleries. I love going to art galleries. Now, is this a gallery of art or a gallery of arc? So we're changing that T in art galleries. Art galleries. Think about galleries. It starts with that G. We're going to change the T to the position of a G. And what does that give us? K. Art galleries. We hold it, release it on the G. Art galleries. Watch out for this one. We've got two in here. This could be done better. This could be done better. So the could be, we're going to change that da into the position of a b. So what does that give us? Could be. Could be. The same with done better. Change that na into the position of a b. What do we get? done better, done better. So said quickly, we've got this could be done better. Here's our final sentence. Then go away. Then go away. So that na, then go, then change that na into the position of a ga, like we have in go. What do we get? Then go, then go. Notice as well what's also happening here. Go away. Emma, I hear that you're adding another sound in there. What's happening? So this is another way of connecting speech in English. Here we've looked at assimilation and changing sounds, but sometimes what can happen in English is we can add sounds. Now this tends to happen mostly with vowel sounds, so please don't worry. And I have a full video all about it, so go and check that out if you want to know more about vowel-vowel connected speech. If you've watched this far, I'd like you to tell me if you use Christmas mugs, and if you do you use Christmas mugs outside of Christmas like I do? Let me know in the comments. Remember, if you're looking to improve your confidence in English and your speaking skills, then why not check out some private lessons on Preply? You can get your first lesson with 50% off by using the code Emma. I need to also go and check out Preply after I've recorded this video because my Spanish, it needs some work. Thank you for watching and I will see you in the next lesson. Bye bye!